you're going to have to blaze your own trail here on out. Not just because you're a woman, not just because you are starting out, but because everything is changing. Before this conversation is done, we have 10 more technologies and 5 more disruptive things. And by the time you graduate, it'll be even more different. So the question is, how do you stay up to date and learn from what others perhaps missed or should have done differently, or perhaps can be a role model of what not to do? That's also okay. Women aren't a monolith. We fail, we live, we thrive, we do all of it. Let's find inspiration in as many who perhaps didn't make it as we do in the ones who did. My name is Mala Valroy. I graduated from SSE in 2012. I have so many memories here. It's where I started my career and moved. I left my career in science to come to Stockholm to study economics. I met my husband here. I met my best friends here. And since then, I've had a career starting my own companies. I've worked in some of the biggest Swedish companies like Atlas Copco and Ericsson. And now I invest in deep tech companies at Industrifonden. I think one of my favorite things about my job is that there's no typical day. I invest in deep tech startups, so startups that are founded and spun out of deeply technical universities like KTH or Karolinska or engineering schools across the country. And these are very early in their technology. They have a high commercial risk. They're making a product and a market at the same time. They're very disruptive technologies. So my work is a lot of meeting these kinds of scientist founders, entrepreneurs, helping them in these early stages of company building. It's actually, it's incredibly exciting to meet founders who want to build something so profound and meaningful that could actually tip the needle for how we live, how we will grow as a country, what we will eat, what kind of energy we will use, how we connect and compute and build our societies. So I think it's intellectually incredibly stimulating. A lot of the work outside of the analysis is relationship building. It's about getting to know founders, having a shared trust that you are the right investor and they are the right investment. And then finding that sweet spot, which is negotiation in some parts, but it's a bit of a dance to find that long-lasting foundation that you want to build, where this will be more than just a check we write, and you will be more than just a dot on my Excel sheet as I track and manage my portfolio. It's very human, even though we're talking about things as disruptive as quantum and biotech and AI. And I like that. I like the convergence of that in my career. From the lab, big companies, venture, I think has helped me shape my opinion of what my everyday should look like, and venture investing in deep tech feels like the right fit. I think that's always an answer that's bittersweet, because without a doubt, there's progress. There's some fantastic statistics coming out. Some of the biggest unicorns that have been made in the US and in the EU have been female-founded or mixed teams. So we're clearly making a dent with all the many efforts that are being put into place. Yet I think anyone you meet, me, my colleagues, will tell you that there's a long way left to go. The honest answer is to write the check. The easiest and hardest thing at the same time up until now has been this problem that there's so many baked in biases in the industry. Some intentional, a lot of them unconscious, that have excluded founders based off of gender, based off of economics, based off of color, and sometimes all three at once. And I think it's on one hand, like I said, it's a very simple thing, write the check, but all the decisions and all the ways that we prevent and miss and exclude people in the decisions to actually get to that check. It's been everything from where VCs source. There's a lot of network effects. You trust a VC to recommend a founder, you trust a founder to then recommend another founder. And if they all happen to be from a certain group, well, then you get that propagated over and over. It's just human nature. But unless you meaningfully intervene in that, it's very hard to say, well, we'll just get it to move on that side. And then when you have women who finally make it through the doors and they're sitting there and they're pitching, the kinds of questions and the scrutiny is very well documented to be biased. Again, it's been a struggle to be able to put that very clearly on the table, but there's been a lot of work to articulate how we measure what is good changes based on your gender and who's sitting across the table. I think it's important, again, to understand that equality is not a destination, it's a journey. It has to be something you allow yourself, your team, and your skills to evolve with. As we learn how we were perhaps excluding certain groups, we may become blindsided in our own virtuousness of having solved this problem, thinking, now it's done, now I've made the world more equal, only to be confronted by the fact that it isn't as complete as we thought. And we have to be able to live with that. One, it's not possible to be perfect and get all of it right. This goes as much as for people like me advocating for equality, that we must have the tolerance for it, that it's a process, that we are moving towards it. Perhaps not the patience for it, but the tolerance for it, so that it moves at a pace. And that said, to give yourself grace that as long as you're willing to understand and willing to hear more perspectives and constantly challenging yourself, exactly when you feel like you're done, question it. Question what you've missed. Question why you feel that it's done and who could give you a different perspective. And the moment you open yourself for that with curiosity, with empathy, with genuineness, I think you continue the process and you take it to a different level. And I think that's what leadership is. Education is so much more than we can fit into a classroom. I think it's greater than the sum of all of the parts. It's what we learned here. It's who we learned it from. It's who we sat next to when we were learning it. It's what we did with it when we walked out of the door and tried to build with it, tried to apply it. I can think of so many courses where it was interesting and it was new and it was challenging, and that in itself was the gift. And then there was a number of things where you walked out and you were in a company, you were like, oh, this is what we talked about in class, and you could connect dots. And then there's things that you just don't have a map for, like entrepreneurship. I loved my entrepreneurship course here in SSE, and then it was an entirely different thing to try to build your own. No one tells you about how terrifying it is and what that chart that you saw about the different steps of a value prop look like when you don't have to fill it out for a test, when you have to put it into a product instead. So I think education is more than knowledge. I think it's definitely about learning, but it's about growing as a person. Not just your skills, but who you are, and coming back and revisiting all the dreams you walked in with and realizing I can dream even bigger than I walked in.